Ready for an adventure that welcomes everyone? Dive into Cache Odyssey. Cache Odyssey is 6 fully accessible geo tours where every geocache is designed for everyone, regardless of their abilities. Each hidden cache tells a unique story, bringing people together on a journey of discovery. With your support, we can make these inclusive adventures a reality. So, whether you're a seasoned geocacher or a new adventurer, get ready to experience the thrill like never before. Join us in creating truly accessible geo tours. Support Cache Odyssey today.
If you have not become a patron of the Geocache Talk Network, what are you waiting for? Patron levels start as low as a Bison Tube level at $3 a month. To sign up is easy. Simply go to the Geocache Talk website and click on the Become a Patron button, or go to patreon.com/Geocache Talk. Patrons now get the famous Blackout coin, invites to special events, and other really great items throughout the year. Become a patron today. Have you subscribed to FTF Magazine yet? FTF Magazine is the #1 geocaching magazine available. It is a quarterly magazine that you can be part of. Submit your geocaching milestones and adventures to be published. FTF Magazine is also interactive with puzzles to solve and a hunt to find Spartacus. If you can solve the puzzle or find Spartacus, then you will be entered in to win a special pack tag. Every new subscription, you will receive a special swag pack. Subscribing is easy. Just visit FTF's website, ftfgeo.com. Don't miss out and subscribe today.
Logwork, the creators of the fantastic logbook, made with genuine Write in the Rain paper. The logbook's designed for the micro containers of the present and future, geared towards the hider who'd rather go caching than doing cache maintenance. Find them at logwork.com. That's logwerk.com.
Calling all geocachers. At artedcrafted.com, we create unique apparel designed by geocachers for geocachers. From custom t-shirts to personalized mugs, our gear lets you express your passion. Stand out at your next event with artedcrafted.com. artedcrafted.com. Gear up for your next geocaching adventure.
Oh, hello everyone. I thought I did solo. I'll see you guys in a minute. All right. Big thanks to our patrons, our new patrons, Math Seeker, and a huge thanks to all of our veterans. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, so thank you all for your service, and thank you to all our patrons for keeping the show on the air. Well, I hinted at everybody, so let's just get everybody in here. So let me push the button here, and who am I missing? I'm missing Josh. There's Josh. All right, thank you, appreciate you.
At least we've gotten professional over the years, so that's
I know, real professional.
We're good.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been good for as many years as I've done this. Right. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. We'll get into this here in a minute, but I want to do a little quick news segment. And y'all can comment on the news as we go as well, so feel free to do that. First item I want to mention is that this upcoming Geo Woodstock, which is going to be in Morgantown, West Virginia, they are now at 2260. So I had to went and updated it from when Pizza Ninja had updated it earlier, and so the glorious number for that is 3,000. If they get to 3,000 by a certain date, I don't know, Charles, you remember the date? Is it a month or 2 months they have to get it done?
Yeah, I think it's 60 days prior to the event, because there's some other things that happen once it's already a mega event. They're trying to get to that next tier above that and whatnot, but it's got to be done within a certain amount of time, because then the requirements for the event change when you go from a regular event to a mega event, from a mega event to the next level up. The requirements from HQ change, so you've got to have enough time to then make all of those changes happen if you haven't already started pre-planning some of those. So there is a time frame for that to happen. So if you do think that you potentially may attend, post a will attend. That's the whole point of that. If you know for a fact that you're not going to go, please don't post a bogus will attend.
Yes.
That gets murky. But if you think there is a good chance that you may end up attending in West Virginia, then please log will attend and help that event achieve the next level up that they are trying to get to.
Yeah. And you'll get all the announcements.
That's what everybody wants to know. Do we think it's going Giga?
Do we think it is? I think it is.
They've got enough time there. If I remember correctly, I went back and looked at time frames for the other Giga event that happened in that part of the world a couple of years ago, and they're actually ahead of where that event was for will attends. So the one that happened in Cincinnati went Giga and whatnot. There was a huge push for that. But this event, which they don't seem to be pushing as hard as Cincinnati did. But it looks like they're ahead of schedule for will attends. So
go ahead. What are you gonna say, Jesse? Something?
Maybe it'll happen. It's exciting. I mean, if people weren't considering going before, now that it may go Giga, there might be a few more logs show up.
Absolutely. The other news item I wanted to a couple of news items I wanted to mention was I wanted to mention about our Cache Odyssey Indiegogo campaign. We have reached the goal, but we still have coins available. At least I think we do. Let me go double check before I blurt that out on at November 10th at 7:07 p.m. local time. I'm checking just to make sure because I don't want to misspeak.
No, there's 3 left.
3 left. So
those one of the things in the show. So
yeah, hopefully they'll get claimed. One of the things too is if you want to donate, one of the things that I think people don't realize is that we set a goal. And if you get like, oh, well, you've already funded it all. Well, sort of.
Yeah.
but not really.
Anyway. Yeah.
Indiegogo, which I like Indiegogo as instead of Kickstarter, but Indiegogo does take a percentage to have a campaign. So technically we haven't even reached the full amount. So if you want to give, I mean, we're good. It's gonna happen.
We're gonna get it going. Yeah, it's gonna be
100%.
Geo Tours now. So
yeah, so we're 100% as far as commitment. HQ has already sent us the paperwork. We just need to sign it, send it back, and we'll have on December 29th, all 6 Geo Tours will go live. Charles has got one of the hides, so hopefully he doesn't slack off and not get his done. I know he'll get his done.
Probably won't be in the middle of nowhere like some of his other caches, but
right. Well, it's a different
set of parameters for this one.
Yeah, whole different set of parameters for that. So anyway, so again, if you'd like to give, trust me, it's going to go. And again, all the money for that campaign goes into Cache Odyssey. We had some things that we purchased that we'd like to use. We still need to pay for. That's on there, like the stamps for all 50 states. And again, and we're actually a little bit short, but we'll be okay. We got enough. Yeah, we got enough. So, and then the other quick note I wanted to mention is it's coming up. It's not too far away, Jesse. We are close to the 9th annual Podcast of Hope on December 7th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central Time. We have a all-star cast, as we always seem to. We have some incredible guests that I think everybody will enjoy. Everything from bass player of a big band to National Geographic Adventurer of the Year to a YouTuber who I know this definitely scratch you guys where you itch, and that is he goes out in the middle of nowhere and finds things, and then he finds them on Google Earth, and he'll actually try to get to them. Whether he can get to them or not, but he finds a lot of cool ruins, and so he's going to be on. So we got, again, so many different. We got Brian Roth will be on. We try to have him on every year, so it's an all-star cast, and it's a great night where we raise money for St. Jude, and this is, again, I can't believe it's our 9th year to do this, so very exciting to do that. So, all right. That is the news. Don't know. Looking through the and I'll have Jesse kind of keep an eye on the chat room for me, and Charles too. So, see, this is good. We got some folks out in the West that are watching. But we appreciate everybody. But we got a person in Idaho and. People all over, which is fabulous. All right. Let's get into this. So everybody knows who everybody is. We're going to kind of go around the room a little bit, and let's get names and maybe a quick note about your geocaching. So Noel, let's start with you, sir. Tell us a little bit about you, and you said you tend to go a lot with the wife, or and when did y'all get started?
Yep. So for my birthday in 2004, my wife, fiance at the time, bought me a GPS, a little old yellow Garmin E-Trex as they were in the day, and we started geocaching the very next day then. And so we became XC tracker. She was more of a cross country runner, and I was more of a track runner. So we combined the two, and
nice.
And that's kind of how that became.
Cool.
Yeah, we live in Nebraska now, and we just love being in the mountains. She grew up in Wyoming, right outside Cody. It's kind of her backyard, so we love getting up there when we can. And anytime that we can get out and do some hiking, we definitely try to.
Awesome. And Nico, let's go to you, my friend. Tell us about your
So I'm Nico. I'm 1/3 of the CML crew team. Cool. I got my start geocaching, I think, in 2007 with my parents in New Mexico.
Cool.
And so they're the other two. I no longer live in New Mexico. I'm now up here in Cody. Okay. And so kind of got started with more of your standard types of caches. And then as I moved to Cody, got more interested in all the ones that we have in the middle of nowhere.
Cool. Very cool. BJ, tell us about yourself, buddy.
Hey, I'm BJ. I dabbled with geocaching here and there, maybe in the mid 2010s, but then moved out to Wyoming and kind of use it as a way of just getting outside.
Gotcha.
So I'm just kind of going after ones that are like terrain 4+, which is
kind
of how Mountain Goat got on my radar. But yeah, you'll see I only have 84 finds on my account, and that's why. So
right. So you have a very specific way you like to geocache, which is cool. Mm-hmm. And then Josh, tell us about yourself, buddy.
So I started geocaching in 2010. I went GPS caching, and then I got hooked pretty quickly. And that was in Michigan, kind of in college when I was. So I got into it really hardcore for the first couple of years, just going for as many as I could, like doing a lot of, just numbers caching.
Right.
And then we moved to Wyoming about 5 years ago, and it's been slowing down for a while now. I kind of focus on more of the quality caches,
Right.
stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been fun with this Wyoming caching because, you just get so many caches out there that like don't have finds for like 6+ years.
Right.
And in Michigan, that'd be insane. Like just 1 year. Like, oh, it's so lonely.
Yeah, 1 year, and that's nothing for that.
I know. But yeah, so I do it when I can. I try to combine it with mountain climbing because that's kind of my main hobby now.
Oh,
and so
cool.
it's really nice when you can do a 2-for-1 on that.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. That's awesome. So another quick note is that if you can find it, not now because you're watching the show, but later, if you go through, if you have FTF magazines, a stack of them or whatever, I found the article that Charles wrote in FTF magazine. And if you want to know, it's the one that has a worm hook thing on the front. If you want to do the visual for it. And if you want to look it up, if you've got them numbered in some way, I just throw them in a stack, so I'm not very organized. But it is September-October 2014 article or magazine, Volume 5, Issue 5, and again, that's what the front looks like. So, and the article is further in. It's called "A Bear of a Cache." So there is the article. And that will be some reference in case you want to go read about it later, or if you have it in front of you, you can follow along with me as we do this. So Charles, I'm gonna start with you. Oh, so for everybody, the layout is Charles found it, Nolan found it, kind of next, I guess, and then the three. Nico, BJ, and Josh all found it together. So three finding groups, I guess you could say. But yeah. So I'm gonna start with Charles for a moment, and then I'll get everybody else's answer to my first question for you guys, which was, how did this cache hit your radar as far as finding it or wanting to go find it? So how did this hit your radar first, Charles?
So my fiance at the time was working as a travel physical therapist at the hospital there in Cody. And I was working in Texas, and once the school year was over, was going to come up and spend some time up there with her, visit Yellowstone, and just do some geocaching around the area. And then I just went around and started looking at, for local geocaches, and just I did, whatever it was, a 50-mile radius of Cody, and then started looking, and I found a single 5.5 rated geocache.
Okay.
And then once I opened it and looked at it, I realized, well, nobody has ever found this cache. And it's been out there, with that time, it had been out there about 7.5 years when it first came up on my radar.
Right.
I started doing just kind of some map recons of, hey, how do you even get here? I had emailed the cache owner and said, hey, can you give me any tips on this? And he responded back with a nice lengthy email that, kind of gave me some tips on it, and, what I was looking for. He told me it was going to be a Gatorade bottle that there was no log sheet, but he did fold up a single dollar bill and tossed it down in a Gatorade jug, and then put it under a pile of rocks. That was their like midway lunch point, because him and a buddy of his were actually mountain biking the trail all the way through. And so they started over in the west and went east the whole 26 miles of this trail / bike path.
Gotcha.
And so it just came up on my radar as it was a unfound 5.5 geocache. I had absolutely zero finds in Wyoming at the time. And so I was like, well, how cool would this be? I posted it in a Facebook group, and surprisingly got a mass of followers who, kind of just followed the hype and the journey that I had. I'd posted,
Right.
this, that, and the other. And, and so it was funny because people had asked, during the day while I was out walking, we're like, hey, has anybody heard from Charles? Does anybody, because I went by myself.
Wow. Yeah.
Always safe to do. Super safe.
Yes.
You've never done that, Jesse.
This is not about me. It's about Charles. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
I did have a can of bear spray with me. I did have a 9mm pistol that I took with me that, now looking back on it, wasn't near enough firepower for me to be hiking this part of the country by myself.
Right.
And I didn't have anybody to trip if I came across something, if I decided to take off running. So I didn't have anybody to trip and leave behind me. So,
right.
I did a bunch of map recons and just reached out to the cache owner. I stopped and was in Cody for a couple of days and went by the Bureau of Land Management building and the National Forest Service building and looked over maps and talked to people. And then a wildlife biologist for the Forest Service told me, said, hey, just so you're aware, any grizzlies that are in Yellowstone or the surrounding areas that they capture in campgrounds that have kind of become desensitized to humans or that show an aggressive nature towards humans, that they trap them and then helicopter them up to the north slope of the Yellowstone River. So right where the geocache is where the National Park Service and the Forest Service drop all of their grizzly bears after they have trapped them. That's where they relocate them to. And so I was like, oh,
great.
Well, I guess I better buy a can of bear spray. And, I went and got, some plus P 9mm ammo, but, looking back on it, that probably would have just, upset a bear if I ended up using that. So
just make him really mad.
Wow. So that's how it got on my radars, just because I did a radius search and then looked for caches that didn't have any find logs on them and found that one and was like, wow, I've never gotten a first to find on a 5.5.
Right. So you're like, ooh.
And and then once I got up to Cody, a couple of days of prep and, looking at maps and talking to people, and then I went off and made the adventure of it.
For our audio folks, if you want to also follow along, the geocache is GC1 Mike 20 Victor.
If you're using the military phonetic alphabet, yes, Victor.
There you go, Victor. So GC1 M as in Mike 20 V as in Victor is the GC code for this cache. So so I'll come back to Charles in a minute, but let me get on to the group 2, which wasn't a group, which is Nolan. So you went by yourself, is that right?
My wife and I went.
Oh, so the wife was along. Okay.
Yep.
So now you had a couple of attempts though. Tell us a little bit about your multiple attempts that you took.
So we started kind of looking at this cache in about 2001 when we were having a class reunion up there for my wife, and we were actually staying in the Sunlight Basin just above kind of where that geocache is at. So I was looking for anything to do up there for a day.
Right.
And what ended up happening, we ran out of time, so we didn't even get to attempt it in 2011, which was disappointing because I knew the first to find was still there.
Right.
But then in 2015, we were kind of celebrating our our 10-year anniversary, which I guess you can argue is kind of a heck of a way to spend an anniversary camping and hiking around, but that's what we wanted to do.
Sounds good.
And so we kind of planned out a route, and we kind of wanted to come in from the same way that Pathfinder did.
Yeah.
But we were actually camping up in that Sunlight Basin again, that area, and decided it seemed silly to drive around when we can hike that far. And we knew we could, and we were taking mountain bikes too. So we biked in a ways, got to a point where we realized biking really wasn't going to work at that point, and started hiking.
Okay.
And we made it within half a mile of the geocache when we hit the creek that feeds into the river. And of course, in June, the snow melt's still coming off of the mountains. And after looking at every possible angle to cross the river, we decided there was no safe way to do it. And
okay. Wow.
And so yeah, that, as I noted in my log, that was about 20 miles of hiking for a DNF, which is only the second farthest we've ever gone for a DNF. We had tried one at 26 miles before. That we were literally on top of it. It was under about 12 foot of snow, so we had to come back to that one at another time too. But
sure.
Yeah, this was definitely a good one.
Still an epic DNF, probably more epic than most people ever get for an actual find.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure, no doubt.
Nice. There you are.
Yep. There we are the next year. Yep.
So the next year, so let me back up a minute. So I'm hearing that there are, it sounds like you guys correct me, because you actually successfully did this. There are multiple routes, you would say, or is there two routes, or is there really one route? What do y'all think? Anyone, doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's multiple routes.
Yeah. Well, each one of us are finding expeditions. I went from the east and went west. Nolan and his wife started in the west and went east. And then Nico, BJ, and Josh started south on the south rim of the canyon and went north.
Oh, wow.
So they I don't want to say bushwhacked. There's a trail that somebody found that leads them down the south face of that canyon for the Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone, leads them down the canyon, and they made it down to the river and then crossed the river. Neither Nolan and his wife nor I physically had to cross the river to get there. The other three did. We went three completely separate different routes, which is kind of the fun part about this. Is really, until you got to ground zero, nothing in my found log that talks about my trip, or nothing that Nolan and his wife in their log about their trip really pertains to to what Josh, Nico, and BJ did, except for the part right there at ground zero.
Right.
Because we all took three different routes to get there.
Wow. Okay.
So I'd like to hear about that too before we run out of time too. And before we'll get into it eventually, but how did you all decide to take the routes that you did? And we can get there at some point, but
yeah, we'll definitely need to do that.
Always fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did a second attempt. Did you try the same way, Nolan, that you did the previous time? Okay.
Yep. Since we knew the route, we felt like that was the best attempt to just do it again, because we pretty much knew exactly what we had to do to get there within the last half mile.
Right. So just a different time of year to avoid.
Right. Yeah. We went, instead of June, we went in August, and that made a heck of a difference.
Big difference. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then the latest legitimate, we think, find was.
Don't be weak. We know this is the only people that have ever found it.
Yes.
Everybody else on there is lying, and if you don't like it, you're welcome to come on the show.
Yeah.
Now let's move on.
Yeah. So the Three Musketeers also found it. Now y'all are the most recent finds, and I think y'all found it. Was it recently, like September? No, what was it again? When did y'all go up there? I didn't look at the log. Where was y'all?
It was October, kind of middle of October.
Okay, cool. Oh, October 19th. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and y'all wrote a great log. I just had forgotten the date. Y'all all have written great logs, which is great.
Yeah.
For something like this is pretty epic, you know.
This is not a TFTC log.
No, not for something like this. So, tell us a little bit about y'all's plans. I guess whoever wants to go first can.
So BJ spearheaded that route, so I'll let him talk about it because he was the one who came up with the best plan.
Is he the mastermind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of. Yeah. So, kind of going to your question of how it came onto my radar was, in the beginning, I mentioned I've kind of just been going after, terrain 4+ routes, and I have a map that kind of just has all of them plotted out on like a topo map. And so over the winter, when there's like not a lot to do in Wyoming, I just look over maps and plan for things to do in the summer. And I saw it kind of like on the map that there's this little weakness in the south rim of the canyon to sneak down to the river. And I had been kind of getting into pack rafting the previous few years and thought that would be like a fun way to kind of like hike a boat down, just like ferry across the river and bypass all the 18 miles of hiking from the east or the west, and kind of just like, if you can put up with 2 miles of bushwhacking down to get to the river, then you're kind of home free after that.
And so Nico and Josh, were y'all on board with this crazy idea, or y'all had reservations, or?
So yeah, when BJ brought that up the first year, I had kind of also been looking at the same thing, just to see if there was a way down the cliffs, but I hadn't mapped it out quite as thoroughly as he did.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that first time going down was a real adventure because we didn't know if we were going to get cliffed out or we're going to encounter. And there is actually like a faint use path going down there, so other people go down there too.
Right.
So it was interesting. It's definitely thick in some spots and some nice route finding, but it could have been worse for sure.
So
yeah, you can never know what you were going to find down there.
Right. So you're on board with this crazy thing. So Nico, how did you just sort of go along with the crowd, or what happened? You were okay with this as well?
Yeah, I was okay with this. So it came on my radar a little bit differently. Josh and BJ had already made one attempt at it. And then I'd set myself a challenge, which I'm still working on, of getting every cache within 50 miles of Cody.
Okay.
And so I kind of made a sub list of caches that I knew were going to be really hard, such as this one, the Ridge series that's up the South Fork of the Shoshone River. And I thought about trying to figure out a way that I could bypass the 18-mile hike, but I never mapped it out fully. And so then I was talking to Josh about it, and he mentioned that he and BJ were going to run a second attempt down the canyon. It's like, oh yeah, that'd be a really fun way to do
it. You're in. Wow, that is awesome. So, yeah, we'll do some rapid fire in a little bit because I want to hear from everybody on a couple of these questions that have come out. So, Charles didn't have a real good prep plan. Did you guys have a good? I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. So, Nolan, do you think that you had since you did it twice, basically did it kind of twice? Did you do any kind of different? Not necessarily planning for the route, but more planning for like what you were bringing, or did you and your wife make any changes to like, oh, we need to do this versus we did not bring this and bring this? Did you do any of that kind of?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first year we took, our frame packs with us, had them loaded down with too much stuff,
right.
just not knowing what we would get into. And then the next year, once we knew what we need, the more of a tactical solution of it is, we're going light, we're going fast, we're going to get in and get out and not, waste a whole day just trying to trudge along.
So for you, how many hours did you think it was going to take the first time, and how many hours did you think it was going to take the second time, and how many hours did it actually take?
So the first time, once we hit the canyon, so from the west side, you stay up above the canyon for 2/3 of the hike, and then you drop down in, and it's about 1,000 foot of elevation that you lose. And the first time you do it, you kind of you don't even think about it as far as how you're going to come back up. But then it was one of those that maybe we should leave some stuff up here and not take it all down, but we didn't know what it was going to get into, and we got into mosquitoes really bad.
Oh.
And so you'll see on that photo that you showed, we have our head nets up over our heads because we want to take a photo where you could actually see our faces. Right. They were down over our faces on the second attempt for most of that hike once we got down below, because we knew they would get bad, and they did.
Right.
So,
Charles, you only made one attempt, but it was successful. You were 1 for 1 on that one.
Yes.
So how many hours?
Nico.
Oh yeah, Nico too. Yeah. So yeah, how funny. Yeah. How many hours did you think it was going to take, and how many hours did it? I think you said. I think in the article
it eventually took me 11 hours.
Yeah, I remember the 11-hour. What did you think? Because you got back at 10 o'clock.
I was hoping to make it like an 8-hour ordeal. I had kind of mapped it out, and I said, all right, straight line from where I'm going to park to the cache is this. And so I was like, yeah, straight line. And so,
of course,
for me, where I parked at the bottom of the switchbacks for the Morrison Jeep Trail, I then pulled my mountain bike out of the truck and walked it up the switchbacks, which if you go the way I did, leave your mountain bike at the house and just hike it.
Just forget about it, because it was just
because once you get up on top and you're riding the bike trail, I ran into some really thick, sticky clay that was wet. It stuck to my derailleur. It stuck to the gears. And I ended up not being able to pedal because I had so much just clay caked up around the center axle, up around, where the wheel comes in underneath the seat. And it just made it just impossible to bike. And though I had plenty of good mountain biking trail left, the conditions on the ground were just... So I ditched the bike and walked the rest of the way. I then ran into the same thing Nolan did. I had hiked up 1,200 feet up the switchbacks to the canyon rim, walked the canyon rim, and it slowly kind of descends. And then I had 1,000-foot drop to get to the river bottom.
Wow.
And the same thing, once I got about 200 feet down there in the middle of that canyon, the mosquitoes were just horrible. And so I stopped and took a small bath in Deep Woods Off there on the side of the trail. And I don't know if that was good or bad, because now instead of having mosquitoes, just drain me of all of my bodily fluids, I now had like this 2-inch force field around me, but they were everywhere. They just wouldn't land on me.
Right.
So definitely, if you're going to do this, do like Nolan and his wife did. Take you some skeeter nets that you can don over your hat. Because, I was like, man, I'm going to die of blood loss here in this canyon. I mean, they followed me all the way within probably about 100 feet of the river. Once I got down and there was wind moving from the water in there, great.
Yeah.
But for about 800 feet of descending and coming back up the canyon, you just knew that you were going to have mosquitoes everywhere.
Dang.
Mm.
So for you guys, for Nico, BJ, and Josh, did how many sort of same question? How many hours did you sort of plan for, and then what did it end up? Were you successful in your estimation?
I'm trying to remember. I think maybe Josh and I did our first attempt in maybe 4 hours or something.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Josh? Maybe something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that first trip was a long time at GZ. I remember that. We were pretty quick going up and down. We still had to get across the river. That was a big time suck. But yeah, I think we spent a full hour at GZ, and that really was what made that first trip a lot longer.
Right.
Yeah. And for context also, we went post Yellowstone flood in 2022 and it just wiped out flooded the banks of the river, and we didn't know what we were going to find when we got down there, and we thought the cache was probably gone. So we gave it a very thorough sweep, Josh and I, the first time, but we came back. Josh contacted Pathfinder and XC Tracker, and they marked up some photos for us of kind of where we were. And it turned out we were standing probably right next to, where it should have been. So the second attempt, we knew exactly where to go, where to hone in on, what we were in for. And we went in October, so we didn't have to deal with mosquitoes.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah. So, Charles, you got a photo of the location you showed me earlier. Do you have that? Look, if you have that photo, you can bring that photo up.
Yeah. Let's
Here
see.
in a second.
This is from DJ Josh and Nico's trip. This is where they found the cache.
Right.
And you can see this tree that's behind Josh. This tree is, Josh, would you say it was about 12 feet tall?
Yeah, maybe 10 or 12, but it was in your guys' photos, it was 3 feet or something. It had grown massive.
Yeah, so let me show you this. This is a still from the YouTube video that I made when I found it. And so let me show
the same tree.
The same tree.
Right. Which is insane.
So this little tree right here in the foreground is the exact same tree, because the rocks that are immediately behind this tree is where that geocache is under. They're under these rocks right here. And so this tree, when I got there, was 1.5 feet tall.
Dang.
And so, it's you have to remember, things like when you're, and so this little tree and these rocks that are back here are, where the geocache was hidden. So when Josh sent me photos and I said, oh yeah, it's at the base of this tree. And by now it's, it's going to have limbs covering it and this, that, and the other.
Right.
He was like, no way. He's like, I was standing right there.
Oh.
And so I don't know how much. Well, obviously we can tell that at least this tree has grown, 8 or 9 feet since my photo was taken. And so it's, I kind of went through to see if Nolan and his wife had a picture with this tree in the background, but I couldn't find one. But Josh, when he sent me photos and I said, I, downloaded them, marked them up in MS Paint, said, here, watch this YouTube video. I was standing in, in this red square, and you can see all of these trees at different timestamps through this video. And then I said, but if you look at this tree, right behind it are this pile of rocks, and that's where the geocache is. Well, by the time he got, and that was after their first attempt.
Right.
When they went down the second time, they were like, no, we, and I don't know, BJ, Josh, Nico, how much was this pile of rocks covered by mud and debris from the floods?
It was almost completely covered up. The tree had grown so big, the cache was underneath a rock that at the base of the tree, and only the rock was actually sticking out of the ground. Everything else, the entire cache was fully buried in mud.
Wow.
And so we didn't actually end up making the find on it until we started trying to like match up the pictures and things like that. Eventually I happened to be standing on the rock, and I think BJ's like, wait, it might be under that rock. And so we lifted it up and found the cache.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know, and
That's
so it's kind of cool that they found it. I like the fact that, you know, Nolan and his wife found it. They didn't take the $100 that I left in the geocache. They left it for the next people. And then Josh, Nico, and BJ, they found it. They found the $100. But it sounds like they've left it for the next adventurer.
Wow.
And so it's kind of neat to see everybody smile, because we all know. But it's fun to, you know, there is $100 in legitimate U.S. currency.
U.S. currency too. No fake currency. It's real $100 out there. That's incredible.
We added a little extra foreign currentzy too. Just
nice.
Oh, look at that! Just getting rich out there.
Some swag. That's awesome.
Nico, you guys, when you went with them and BJ and Nate, when y'all went back, when you couldn't find it, was there ever discussion of how long are we going to stay out here until we can find this? Did you have that discussion? Because we've all had those discussions at Cache.
Time of death.
Like, what's our time of death? How long are we willing to stay out here? Did that ever come out, or you just kind of ignore that and keep searching for it?
I think this time, or I'm going to let Josh talk about it too. I think having those photos and knowing where it was, where it should be, made it so that we knew we were going to spend a lot less time searching. If we searched through that area pretty clearly and couldn't find anything, then we were going to give up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there's just real quick, I want to mention for the folks that are on tonight in the chat, if you want to ask questions, that we did get a question from K Blast. But yeah, if you have questions for any of the finders, definitely put them in there, and we'll tag them on our end, and we'll eventually get to the questions. So anyway, so let me go back. So we'll get to Brian had a question, but we'll get to his here in a minute. So Josh, what was your thought process about when you were thinking about ditching it, and you know what went through your mind?
You're talking about the second attempt or the first attempt?
Well, both attempts. Yeah.
The first attempt was tough because we kept having that feeling in the back of our mind like the flood got to it, but we still couldn't peel ourselves from the scene. It was just like, like it's got to be around here somewhere,
Right.
The second time, like I said, if we didn't have that beta from Nolan to Charles, there was absolutely no chance we would have found it.
Okay.
Not even, like, it was buried. So, in even having like such good photos, it took us still like 15 minutes to pinpoint that exact location, because there was like debris all over the place and we were having a hard time like matching up like landmarks. It was just that tree, but I was like, this tree is so much, like, I guess it does grow that fast in like 10 years, but it was hard to fathom just like that it was just right next to the tree and just buried. So
yeah,
it was kind of amazing that we even found it given the situation, but yeah, we needed that help for sure.
So I guess my big question is, and Charles, we already know you're kind of insane, so a lot of our people already know that, but like for most people will never go after a cache like this, right?
Right.
So, and a lot of people have been sitting here going, a lot of people have not been 100 feet off the pavement to find a cache at this point, right? So
sure, people haven't.
Kind of this is an insane cache to go for. It doesn't surprise many people about Charles, but for the rest of you, like, what's your background that you think, hey, this is something I'm going to go for? And y'all are much safer than Charles. Y'all went with other people, so that's good. At least not teaching bad habits, right, Charles?
Backing on Charles tonight.
Like, what was your, like, I know you mentioned a little bit of your other hobbies, just you glanced over that, but what's your background that you thought this is a safe thing for me to go do? And anybody can go, because I know y'all have some background in this, but.
So when we got married, we actually moved to Missoula, Montana for a couple of years while my wife was getting her master's degree up there.
Right.
And so, she'd be done with school by mid-afternoon. And of course, you're so far north up there that in the summertime, the sun's not going down until 10 o'clock at night. So you've got another 8 hours of your day to do anything.
Right.
And so we'd go hit the trails and just start hiking. Cool. And just like some of you mentioned already, you just start looking for what's around 50 miles away or try to clear off your 50-mile radius.
Yeah.
And so we just kept going more and more trails, and you'd have to go farther and farther to get them. And eventually, some of those that at that time, you could still put wilderness caches out. So you were walking 10, 15 miles to get out to them. And we didn't think too much of it because we were both, she was a cross country runner and I had done the same thing. So we were well in shape, and it was just something to go do and keep us busy.
Really cool. Yeah. So for how about for the other guys? Just for everybody who may not be following along on the GC, it was hidden in 08. Just so you will know, Charles found it in 8/5/2014, and then the next finder, of course, was XC Tracker, which was the two of them, XC and Tracker, and they found it in 2016. So anyway, for you guys, what I know you talked about, like, Josh's does kind of, his is more mountain climbing. For you guys, what was y'all's background on to go after something like this? Yeah.
I mean, I spend a lot of time outside. That's why I live in Wyoming and just have a lot of confidence in being able to be safe and handle myself and being physically fit. So I think like the component of, adding pack rafting to my activity list and not being afraid of just like a short ferry across the river, and having like a boat that I can hike in for a couple miles, it just gave me the confidence that whatever was ahead wasn't going to be more than I could handle.
Right. And then for Nico, because you started with your parents, right? Geocaching.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then were they when they were caching and you were going along with them, were they finding things like this, or was it sort of a mix of the whatever cache was around, or were they kind of into these I guess nowadays we'd call it sort of extreme geocaching, Jesse?
That's
but
really
it's
what
not
it
really.
switched to, considering most things are in town now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, and sadly, this is sort of is considered probably more extreme. But so were you brought up with this kind of caching plan, or?
So we kind of started out the standard route, finding most of the caches around town, like on pavement, all that. But we were always really active. We loved to get out hiking, and where we lived in New Mexico, there was a bunch of pretty nice mountains and nice trails.
Cool.
And so we got out there. It still wasn't, I would say, extreme geocaching like this, but we got out and loved getting caches that were a little bit further away.
Right.
And then really, when I moved to Cody and started going after some of the ones out here that are on rougher terrain and are a bit more extreme, I felt like by the time I went for this one that I had enough experience to handle it. I'm definitely not comfortable in that kind of terrain fully, but you kind of get used to it after a while out here, and you know what your limits are.
Right. So I had so Charles sort of documented some of his encounters. Other than the giant mosquitoes, did y'all see some of the larger potential animals, or did you get lucky and not have any encounters, or what was y'all's animal experience, I guess?
The first year, we didn't see a large animal the first year. I saw a rubber boa, which we don't have in Nebraska, and apparently they're only in Wyoming in that Yellowstone area.
Wow.
And I had never seen one before. I didn't know what it was at the time, and I thought this is some sort of alien snake. And it kind of looks like that if you look them up. But the next year, as we were getting to the trailhead, there was a forest fire across the valley.
Right.
And so a lot of the evacuees were out there and had told us, hey, there's a lot of troubling grizzly bears that have been released up here. They've been killing cattle. And so we were kind of on edge. And as we got about 4 or 5 miles in, we came to some woods, and all of a sudden the branches started breaking down slope of us, and something was coming up really fast. And so we both kind of froze, and what the heck is that? And it was a cow. We had scared a cow, and it took off running. Well, obviously it scared us pretty good too, but that was the only big critter we saw otherwise.
Wow. Yeah. No, y'all didn't do any tree knocking, try to get a squatch to come out or anything, or none of that happened?
Didn't see anything like that, fortunately.
Okay. How about you guys? Did you guys run into because y'all didn't get the joy of the mosquito world that hit you guys? So did y'all see anything or have any kind of encounters, or what y'all see on the trail? Or not trail, but you know what I mean, the trip.
Yeah, we really didn't come across anything. We were lucky. We did see both trips, fresh bear prints right by the river's edge, so they're down there. But we didn't see any, which felt fortunate because, I mean, they're all over the place in that area.
Wow. Yes, that's incredible.
I bet they saw you.
Yeah, they probably had eyes on you.
That's right.
So one of our also crazy, insane viewers and listeners is in the chat room, and he asks, did you rehide it the way you found it? Did you bury it back in the mud before you left? That's from K Blast, who's I won't say more about K Blast. Go ahead. So what are y'all
how did you rehide it after such a weird find?
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanted it to be a 5 difficulty, we could have rehit it that way. But no, we rebuilt the cairn and put it back kind of the way it was originally intended, I believe.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. So the obviously it's a physically demanding trip. You're talking many hours.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you would suggest for the ones that are going to go after this? What are some things that you would suggest you either bring or prepare for? Or, I mean, I know Nolan mentions, travel maybe lighter than you would think, but what are some specific items? I mean, obviously bear spray is probably a good item, but what are some things that come to mind? Obviously a pen, because you want to get there and go, I guess we got to sign a log. So what are some things y'all would bring?
I'd definitely make sure. Well, we took a water filter, obviously, because we knew we were going to go through the water pretty fast, and we did. Sure. We stopped several times at different areas and refilled. And I mean, that's the next thing you got to have is some snacks and stuff. You're doing anything like that, it's like running a marathon. You better be well prepared. You can find yourself in trouble really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How much do I mean, I've done hikes, but nothing of that nature. I know Jesse and Charles has, but do you bring a certain amount based on the number of hours, or I know different people do it differently, but I know, Nolan, you probably knew that there was some water available. You just had to filter it. How much, Charles, did you plan, or did you just take a Gatorade and call it a day?
No, I took a 3-liter Camelback bladder that was in my backpack, and then 2 20-ounce Gatorade bottles with me. I ran out of water on my way hiking up from the river bottom back up to the top of the canyon. I went through one of the Gatorade bottles while I was eating lunch down at the bottom, and went through the second Gatorade bottle about the time that I came out of Killdeer Creek, which is about the time that I ran into the grizzly bear on the trail. So I'm the only one of the groups that ran into, I ran into a black bear on the way in and a grizzly bear on the way out. I don't think any of us saw any mountain goats at all on any of the trips. So, but then I did stop at the Switchback Ranch that is right at the top of the Morrison Jeep Trail. I did stop there and, rang the bell at the gate. The lady that lived there came out with her 2 small children at the time, and brought me some water, a couple of liters of water. I got to put one in my Camelback and then drank one while I was standing there, talking to them about the trip and whatnot. But
Well, you say that, but so you had said that you think you're of course, you're in the middle of an encounter, but you're thinking the grizzly was about 7 feet tall, approximately.
Yeah, standing on its hind legs. It was standing when I came out of the river bottom, because there was a forest fire up on that end. I came out of a river bottom back up onto the top, and it was on all fours standing there right in the middle of the trail. And so I was like, well, here, and so I was like, maybe if I just stay still, something. But it turned and looked over its shoulder at me, kind of stood around, got up on its hind legs, gave me a roar, but that, I probably should have changed my shorts quickly thereafter. But it was my first time ever running into a grizzly out in the wild that, I didn't have a car at Yellowstone to go jump back into.
Yeah. Right.
And so I was worried there for a bit, but it got back down on all fours and, just kind of walked off into the, up the canyon slope into the woods. And, I saw a big pile of steaming fresh bear scat when I came on my way in.
Yeah.
And I probably ran into that same bear on the way out, because it was, roughly the same spot, and it was a worry,
Yeah.
So, but, it's, water, I wouldn't go the way I did. Don't park at the bottom of the Morrison Jeep Trail and hike up that thing. And then go one of the other 2 routes is my suggestion to you, because the way I did it, at least now knowing what I know, because at the time you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But knowing now what I do know, I probably went probably the hardest way of the 3 routes that were done, and probably was the poorest choice of a route. So,
so
yeah.
So for Nico and BJ and Josh, you're obviously planning for 3, but you've got 3 people able to carry. So did you guys, or what was some of your plans? And then what are some things that you would suggest that if there's if a group goes to do this, is there something that you would say, don't worry about bringing, or is there something that one of you guys goes, man, I wish we would have brought, X?
I think I would say if you time it right, if you're able to go in October once like the river level is down,
Okay.
it's like a little bit of a gamble, but I was feeling like we didn't actually need the boats the second time. When Josh and I went, I pack rafted across and he swam across maybe 100 feet or so. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like a way to save weight if you want, but I just like being in a boat and playing around sometimes. So
Right.
That was like fun for me.
Right. Obviously, this all depends on your level of health, I guess you could say it that way. But
yeah. And Nolan, did you take bikes both times, or did y'all?
Yeah, just because we knew, we could get in and out a little bit faster. We usually hike about 2 to 3 miles an hour pretty easily, but riding the bike, you can. Not that it was a flat trail, but at the same time, you can roll along a little bit faster yet. So,
yeah. So the bushwhacking guys, you kind of knew you were, or I guess, did you know that trail, because you had kind of heard about Nolan's trip and Charles's trip, but did you? And of course, you all taking a whole different route. I guess, again, what would you suggest your route for the regular? So BJ's saying yes. You're saying that's the way to go, huh?
Yeah, for sure. We kind of like just stumbled along that trail too. Like we didn't know that would be there. We just thought maybe it was like a game trail, but then we were starting to see like, clear deadfall and, sawn off, logs, and it was like defined all the way down to the river. And I think, again, even if you're not like a strong boater, you could still probably ford that river if you go late enough in the season. Like we went in October, we got lucky enough. And like Nico was able to ford it pretty easily.
Right. Interesting. So, y'all would suggest that route. If you were to, not that you would, Nolan, but if you were to do it a third time, would you take the same route, or would you try Charles's crazy route, or what are your thoughts on?
My wife has actually talked about that she'd like to go do that Morrison Jeep Trail, and so we've talked about doing that hike again from one end to the other rather than out and back. But yeah, I guess if anybody wants to pick me up on the other side, I'm not walking back again.
Me and Nico live in Cody, so we could make that happen.
There you go.
And my Jeep club that I was in Colorado, they go up there and do the Morrison Jeep Trail. We're waiting for the switchbacks to get repaired by the Forest Service because they got washed out during the 2022 deluge that happened there in Cody. But my Jeep club goes up there once a year in August or September and goes and Jeeps around the Cody, Wyoming area. And they've done it every year for the last four or 5 years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So Jesse, since you refused to geocache in Idaho, that if you were to ever get talked into geocaching, now he wants to do Idaho, I'm kidding, but something like this,
this would be at the top of my list. Caches like that are the best. Now, I've tried to stop doing them by myself, Charles.
Yes,
but
I have to. I got married. I got married.
I get a lot of trouble for doing stuff like that. So I always take somebody with me when I do it. But excuse me, as we all know, the planning up to this, if you do any planning, the planning up to this, and then the whole trip, like spending multiple days planning for, and then at least one day going for a single cache, I would take that any day, most days, over doing 100 caches in one day.
Sure.
This is absolutely my favorite type of caching, and you can't do it all the time, right? Because it takes a lot of resources and time to do, but it makes for an epic adventure, and it's just, these rank up there towards the very top of all. When you string all your stories together, these are usually at the top.
Yeah, it's interesting. We, like you said, and we joked about before the show started, like, oh, you only found one cache that day. Oh, way to go! But those are such the epic. Yeah, Eric and EJKPBR in the chat room says sign me up. So
yeah,
there is something really. One of my takeaways is if you're able, depending on your physical abilities, because there are people out there that physically are capable of doing these, but they don't, and I'm not quite sure why they don't. Whether
they don't have the skills to do it, right? It's not just being physically capable of doing it.
Yeah,
it's the skills, and you've got to have the nerve to go out and do something like that, because you're putting yourself in danger, and you've got to keep your wits about you. Like, if you would have messed up when the bear shows up, or you're getting across the river and it's more than you can handle, and you make a bad decision, that's not a good day. And you have to be physically capable and have the know-how as well.
Yeah,
caches like this are worth it, but it's not worth dying over. You need to take a risk up to a point, right? We all like risk, we all love them, but it's not worth dying over. You got to do what's within your skill level. Now, push it for all, by all means, push it to the very edge of that.
Yeah.
When you go past that, you become a liability for other people.
Yeah.
So there is a fine line you shouldn't cross, but at the same time, at least push it to the edge every once in a while. Now, your edge may be 200 feet off the parking lot, but your edge may be a 26-mile hike too. So you won't know until you push that edge, though.
No, that's perfect. Know what you're getting into. I mean, these guys all did that. Other than Charles, both expeditions were team expeditions, which really does make a difference. 3 people coming along a trail, even if it's a grizzly, unless you're provoking in a different way, they're going to tend to not want to deal with 3 people. So they're going to kind of, shy away unless there's some other issues. But, yeah. So, if you're not capable of something like this, let me reverse it a little bit, Jesse. If you're not capable of something like this, don't try this.
No.
Because we've all heard the stories, and this is the one that comes to mind was Grand Canyon. So Susan and I, when we were, at least for me, was in better shape, we knew that we couldn't go all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon trail and come all the way back out. I knew my limitation. I was able to go. I went part of the way and came out so I went, but the part that I felt like I could do, and I, like you said, Jesse, I pushed myself a little further. I pushed myself to that limit, but there's always people, they're going to airlift out of there because they don't know what they're doing. They get to the bottom and they're like, well, I can get out of here. It's like, well, so that's something that I think, people need to remember. But for those that are able, what are some, as we're kind of getting to the end of the show, what are some of the final thoughts that you have about folks?
Let me use this comment as a good wrap up for us.
Yeah.
So it's directed towards Josh, but we're going to spread it out to everybody, right? So Josh is an epic geocacher. I'd love to know where this cache ranks among all the ones he's completed. So let's take that and spread it to everybody.
Yeah.
Where does it rank among the ones you've completed so far? So that's assuming that you plan on doing more epic caches, not less epic caches, for the rest of your time. Where does it rank so far? And do you hope to do something that surpasses that? Or do you even know what that might be yet? You may already have one on your radar. But, anybody want to jump in first?
Well, let's start with Josh. The cache was directed to Josh. So we'll start with Josh.
Let's start with you, Josh.
And then we'll work our way forward, I guess, or upward on the page.
So I guess this cache was really unique for me is that usually I'm going up for geocaches, and this time I was going down for one.
Right.
So yeah, just the circumstances of the cache made it very special. I will mention, since we're on the topic, there are 3 caches in our area that are down South Fork that are in absolutely brutal terrain. I've already DNF'd one. They've never been found. They may not be there. It could be that situation again. But if we're talking about like epic adventures, those are up for grabs. And I will say that those are in just some really rough terrain. BJ just went for one the other day too, and he unfortunately couldn't find it either.
Right.
But there's other ones out there. I will say that. But yeah, in terms of epic adventures, this was definitely one of them. So yeah, good cache.
Ranks up there, huh? Yeah. So BJ, how does this rank, and what are some of your final thoughts on this, on Mountain Goat?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think again, for me, kind of being newer with my geocaching pursuits, 84 total finds. Like this is probably like at the top of the list, if not in the top 3. But I think, part of it was I met Josh like the day before we made our first attempt.
Yeah.
Nico, when we went out, that was like the second time I had like hung out with him. And for me, it was just like, going on this really cool adventure with 2 people who became like really good friends afterward. Yeah, it just made it like a really cool experience.
That's awesome. Nico, what are where would you rank this, and what are your final thoughts, I guess, on old Mountain Goat?
So definitely would rank it pretty high. It's, as Josh said, it's a pretty epic adventure, and I think I'd rank any kind of experience high like this, where you get to go out, you get to kind of push your limits, and also get to do it with friends and get a cool result at the end.
Right.
So overall, really exciting. As Josh said, there's even more epic adventures around here. And so really what I enjoy about Cody caching and what I enjoy about this is there's so much to just explore and technical challenges to look at and figure out. And so that makes stuff like this really fun.
Very cool. Awesome. So Nolan, where does this rank, I guess, and what are your final thoughts on this cache?
Yeah, Mountain Goat's always one that when people ask me about some of my favorite ones, I mean, it's on my top 5 every time. I mean, I liked it so much I did it twice, so
right. And your wife wants to do it again somehow.
Yeah, and I mean, we're coming up on 20 years, and we're already talking about doing something crazy like this again, and
nice.
Yeah, we're looking at maybe doing some big hikes through Yellowstone and stuff here in a couple of years too. So
cool.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff we love doing, and if you like doing it, you're gonna love doing something like this one too.
Cool, that's awesome. Charles, it's been a while since you were there. You're obviously now the grizzled veteran person who's getting toward the end of his time on this earth. And no, I'm kidding. So what are your thoughts? Obviously, Mountain Goat meant a lot because you wrote an article. But what did Mountain Goat mean to you? And
I'll tell you that this is, and I'm only 9,000 caches deep, right? Like I'm quickly approaching 9,000 finds, and I tell people all the time, they're like, hey, we're looking for the next epic adventure for a geocache. And I'm like, yeah. So have you heard about Mountain Goat? Have you heard about GC1M20V? Be like, I try and promote this cache as much as I can for people. And I'm straight up with them. I tell them it is a rugged hike, whichever way you go. There's no easy way to get here.
Right.
I tell people that if you can go and stay in Cody, Wyoming for a night and then make the loop up to Red Lodge, Montana, over the Beartooth Pass, down and around and up and over Dead Indian Pass, and then back down into Cody, that is some of the absolute best. The views that you'll get on doing that loop in a day are phenomenal. I've done it on a motorcycle. I've done it in an old Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, the views are phenomenal. That is some of the most rugged, untamed, and beautiful scenery that you'll ever find in America.
Wow.
And if you've got the opportunity to make that trip, even if you don't go after this geocache, there are other geocaches up or on close to the highways that are close enough that you can stop and find. But the views and the experience that you will get from being in this part of the United States, which is just raw and rugged and beautiful. I mean, there's not a bad view out there. There's
Absolutely.
just not, which is what pulls people to move to that area and what pulls people to go on anniversary trips to that area. Me and my wife go back up there several times a year and whatnot. And so it's just an amazing place in America that is rugged and untamed and raw, and you will have an amazing adventure regardless of what you do. If you go for this cache or not, if you're in the ability to go for this cache, I highly encourage it. But this is one of the most beautiful spots in America, as these other finders can attest to. And it is something that you need to get out and experience at least once in your lifetime. If you can afford to make it around this part of the country, gas is expensive and there aren't a lot of stops, and you're going to be eating lunch out of a cooler or a paper sack.
Right.
But it's worth it. And so I highly encourage people to get out. This is probably my number one most favorite cache that I've found. I tell people about it all the time. I've written an article in First to Find magazine for it. I highly encourage other people to do it. When I saw that Super Josh, BJ, and Nico had found it, I got on Facebook and said, hey, 3 more people have found this epic cache. If you don't have it on your bookmark list or if you're capable of doing it, if you don't have this on your radar, it needs to be. Go look at their pictures, go read their logs. And all of us have had phenomenal pictures posted to the cache page. We've got wonderful logs, and I highly encourage anybody who is, I don't know where to go for my next vacation, Cody, Wyoming, and go up and do the Beartooth Pass, do Dead Indian Pass. They're seasonally open, so y'all probably have already gotten enough snow up there that those roads are closed. But plan it for July and August and October, the July because they plow the road for July 4th. There's a motorcycle rally that happens in Red Lodge every year. It's a great place to go,
Right.
And so I highly encourage people to get out there and push their limits. And I've had friends that have like, hey, would you go on an expedition with us? Would you walk us down there? Be like, yeah, I'd do it again.
Sure.
To watch some other people, to just kind of stand back and watch other people look for it and find it and see how much the area has changed since I found it. Obviously, we see the pictures that these new 3 adventurers have found and posted, and a lot of it has changed, but a lot of it is, hey, I remember that tree and I remember this tree, and but it wasn't that big, so it's interesting. I'm highly encourage people to get out and push their boundaries, and this is one that I talk to people at all kinds of events and tell them, if you've got one cache in Wyoming to go get, make it this one.
Wow, that was awesome. Well, incredible. I'm glad that it worked out. We could have y'all on. That's really Charles's doing. I read Charles's comment about it, and I was like, oh. And so I reached out to Charles, and he was like, no, let's get the other finders on. So I'm glad this all came together, and incredible stories, guys. Thank you so much for being on. real quick, next Sunday we're going to have, and we don't normally get to do a lot of international folks because of the time frames. We sometimes have folks overseas who are on with us, but it's usually middle of the night for them. But next Sunday we are going to have on a gentleman who lives in Brazil. He owns the Project Ape Geo Tour and manages all of that. So, those are some epic caches as well. So, definitely come back next Sunday for that show. And we have a challenge talk, I think, on Tuesday. So that's going to be great as well. So once again, guys, tremendous. Love the stories and love the experience. We had a lot of people in the chat room who mentioned that as well. So thank you, and we will see y'all down the road. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
May your finds be many and your DNFs be few. May the terrain and difficulty both be less than 2. And whatever it is you're looking for, may it find its way to you. And may we all meet again.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.